But I mean, you'll be fine.
Everyone has done that. Nothing else is
Mä esittelen teille, että sitten kun annan teille mikrofonin, sitten kuuntien poikaan sitten niin, että tämä ei ole siis haastattelutilanteeksi suunniteltu, vaan annan teille mikrofonin, sitten puhutte, kun te olette valmiita sanoa tämän kyyn. Joo, paha.
You just harder? Yeah, you make fun. I wasn't sure if you were making fun of it.
So apparently on the internet, it said that you were in a quite old and Russian is harder.
Good.
Oh, really?
There are a few seats on this side in the back if people come in and look lost. Hi, by the way. So It looks like we are live on the internet, but it's a little bit, tiny bit unclear exactly where on the internet we are live. So we're going to take 5 minutes to figure that out so that we can tell you, so that you can tweet all of your friends about that. And until then, these are the hashtags. Should you choose to accept them, and if you don't accept them, then self-destruct, just make your own. And we'll continue in like 4 minutes. Talk to each other, or run out for your last sandwich, or whatever it is.
Could you stand in front of the hashtag so we can take pictures?
I'm keeping time. Sorry.
Because you are on the stream.
Yeah. Yes, I can. I gotta check it in.
As long as you're in the front row. Can you be there or there? Yeah.
So that's in the stream.
This is reserved camera view.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So you have to be shorter than this.
Yeah, and we can't just add a chair.
No. Nope.
How are we on streaming?
We are streaming. We're live. We're live.
Good. Where are we live?
We're live on YouTube. The link is coming.
Link is coming. Where to is it coming?
Where would you like it?
Well, I would like it posted at the Nordic Larp Talks event on the page, and I would like it given to me so I can give it to all of these good people. Hi, internet.
It's the bottom thing. Right, the bottom thing.
Can we timer it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ask Jose. Okay. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna give me a tiny Earl in the next break after the first talk.
Anywhere near the camera?
Are you done? You're walking next to you. You need to do.
All right, friends, we are apparently live on YouTube. Yes, hi internet. And what we're going to do some traditional things. The first is that we pretend that I haven't been here at all, and I walk over there, and then I come in again, and you can cheer at the awesomeness of the Nordic Larp. 2016. We are in Helsinki, Finland, and Solmukohta, usually when we do this, I'm going to say Solmukohta is starting tomorrow. Now, because of the very excellent design of this year's Solmukohta, the Solmukohta cruise experience is starting tomorrow, and the conference itself is starting the day after. And of course, all of our friends on the internet who are crying at home because they are not here, not for the LARP talks, not for the cruise experience, not for the conference. Maybe you're in Stockholm waiting for your boat. Hang in there, we're coming. Talk to us even though you're not already here. Usually we say hello to the internet, so let's do that. Maybe hello internet. 1, 2, 3. Hello internet! So we have a full room here today. I think we can fit like 4 more people in, if you don't mind not being able to see the slides. So if you're somewhere close by watching this on the tram, run. Okay. I have some practical information, and then we're going to get started with the program. The first is that we don't actually have like a dedicated photographer here this year, but it's nice to have some nice action shots of speaking people that usually look like this. Next to the video. So if somebody has a camera, or you get a really good shot with your cell phone, that's great. Send them to us. We'd love to use them. This event is produced with the support of Odyssey and the Inside Job Agency, and of course the fantastic A Week in Finland Solmukohta cruise. Thank you very much to them. And as for every year, all of this has been built a little bit out of cardboard, which isn't, I was like, should I mention that? Because some years we've been like, no, we are very professional. But now it's like, no, I think we're getting pretty good at doing this with cardboard. So actually now it's a brag. This is a labor of love. This comes from the community. The speakers come from the community. Typically way too late, we ask them, could you give like a genius talk? And they're like, okay. And then we do that because we all love the community and we love LARP design so much. And of course that's the topic of today. And I will say this now because at the end you'll be too tired to remember and too inspired to remember, is that this year we're not going to have to wait a full year to the next LARP talks. Who knows? We might go totally crazy and have like 7 of them. That's very unlikely, but we can reveal tonight that the next Nordic Larp talks will be held in Oslo on the night before the Grenselandet Black Box Festival in October. With the program. It has become traditional at the LARP talks to give a sneak peek into this year's Solmukohta Knutpunkt. Which one am I missing? Knutepunkt. So at these conventions, which are so conveniently named, we tend to publish at least 1 book a year. This with LARP design articles, they tend to become available quite fast on the internet, and for our world audience who are crying in places like Bogota or San Francisco or Ramallah, hi guys, and not being able to be here tonight. Of course, the conference is also coming to you soon. What are the books this year? Well, let's hear from our first presenters. Kaisa Kangas is a Finnish LARP designer who has been playing and making LARPs for 20 years. She is the fiction lead for the Palestinian-Finnish political LARP Halat Hisar, State of Siege, that will be run again in June of this year. And Jukka Särkijärvi is a writer, editor, translator, game designer, con-runner, and Pathfinder Society Venture Captain Emeritus from Espoo in Finland. He's also the author of Roolipelikirja, a non-fiction book about role-playing games. There is a third editor who is not here tonight. His name is Mika Loponen, and he's also fantastic. Please welcome 2 of the 3 editors of this year's Knutpunkt books. Okay, interesting, sure. And then... Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go over there, and then you're going to cheer again, and then you guys are going to start.
Kaisa, keep it hot.
Yeah.
Hello everyone! First, let me tell you about Larp Realia. This is a solo book in the traditional vein that we have all come to know and love. It's a collection of thought about the places we've gone and the things we have done since the last. Theoretical musings about LARP and its uses, practical considerations of the nuts and bolts of playing and running, how our games have gone right or wrong, what we've learned and how we can pass that along. In Larp Realia, we have a further discussion of past year's hot topic lead. We have 2 different articles on how things are done way over in Spain, and discussions on how LARP looks like when approached from the fields of theatre or law. The biggest section of the book, however, is design, rummaging around under the hood of the game. Some of the folks behind College of Wizardry tell us about the character writing process. And we have articles highlighting the extremes of human interaction, with one telling us how to create engaging playable content of organized meetings and palavers, followed by one about actual fist fighting as the core concept of a LARP. Also, it's the first solo book to contain a food recipe, and the first with the nipples on the cover.
Does it work? Yes? Okay, so this year we also wanted to do something a little bit different. So we wanted to make a book about the political dimension of LARP. And here, well, if you look at the trends of what's in the book, you can see that there are lots of topics that are actually hot in politics, like right now, like refugees and fascism. I was kind of expecting that there would be more stuff about, like, I don't know, like scene politics, you know, like these arguments that we used to have on LARPers BFF, but actually there's none of that stuff in the book, which is probably a good thing. However, there are, for instance, articles on how it is to be a queer LARPer, like how it is to LARP if you're gay or if you're trans, and also for some reason the topic of gender was very popular. So it's like in the trans article, it's obviously there, but there's also like articles on like playing drag in Just a Little Loving, and also an article for instance, like LARP and feminism, and an article on how to make interesting female characters in historical settings while keeping the setting kind of realistic with the gender roles. And then, like in every solo book, I think, or Knut book, there's lots of theory, and that's the case also this time. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's there. There's, for instance, an article on like how we can use the theories of political science to look at LARP, to use them to study LARP as political action. And then there's also a very interesting new framework for looking at LARP, because, you know, usually we conceptualize LARP as play, but there's this new framework of looking at LARP as labor, which sort of opens new interesting possibilities. And then, of course, the most important thing in the LARP scene are the games themselves. So we have quite many articles on really interesting political games. And already last year, I think we could see that Russian LARPs are trending. We're like getting interested in them, and we're starting to realize that there's been lots of cool stuff going on in Russia already for some time. And it's actually like what the Russians seem to be really great at is systems and simulations. And one article in this book is about this big Russian LARP 1905 from last summer, where you can see that how they really work the systems in the game. And there's also one article like anybody here interested in EduLARP should read, because in Moscow Lomonosov State University, there is this whole center for using games in education, and they make really awesome edu-LARPs. Like they made this LARP about an elections campaign where you play the various candidates and their teams, and this was going on like for several weeks, and it's so cool. But I think you should like read the books to know more, and so I think this is this, but we'll be talking more tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll have an official book launch event from 6 to 8 at on the boat at the like conference deck. It's like Pro 611. I don't know where exactly it's, but I'm sure we'll find out. So we'll meet there and talk more about the books.
And drink wine.
And drink wine.
I asked when is the PDF release, and the answer is hopefully tomorrow. So you're in luck. Yes. I should also mention, Kaisa mentioned in passing LARPers BFF, where we used to have big arguments. We still have big conversations. The LARPers BFF is a Facebook group. If you're not a member today, you should maybe look into it. It's the kind of things that you're probably interested in if you're here. Our next speaker is a Finnish novelist, transmedia developer, game designer, and entrepreneur. He has founded 2 media companies that together have won an international Emmy Award, 2 Interactive Rockies, and a Prince Europa. His master's thesis in screenwriting dealt with participatory storytelling in classical Greece, those pesky Greece LARPers. He is also the author and designer of the kids' tabletop RPG, Age of the Tempest. Please welcome Mika Pohjala.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I will be Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I will be talking about monsters. I will be talking about monsters as metaphors. Some of the abstract concepts that I will be dealing with include consumerism, hubris, nuclear radiation, but most importantly, eutrophication, and specifically in connection to the Baltic Sea and a series of LARPs called the Baltic Warriors. Baltic Warriors was a transmedia campaign consisting of many different things, social media, debates, but also LARPs. And we had a tour of the Baltic Sea. The blue part in the middle, that's the Baltic Sea. And we ran 7 LARPs in 7 countries during last summer, during the summer of 2015. As far as we know, this is one of the most international LARP campaigns in the history of the world. Usually I say it's the most international, but with this crowd, I don't know, somebody's going to come to me and say, actually, we didn't. But still, 7 countries in a couple of months. We began in Tallinn in May on a steam icebreaker. Then went on to St. Petersburg on the cultural house on the shores of the Neva. Then a sandy beach in Poland, Sopot. Then Kiel Kunsthalle Art Museum in Germany. The square, the plaza in front of the Parliament Christiansborg in Copenhagen, in Stockholm. That's actually an aerial photo that I took on the plane. We didn't play it in the plane, we played it in the Historical Museum. And finally, Helsinki. And the games were essentially political conferences where lobbyists, decision makers, politicians, journalists, activists come together to decide upon an issue affecting the eutrophication of the Baltic Sea. Now, of course, you're going to have two questions. Question one, what is eutrophication? Question two, how do you make a LARP about eutrophication since you can't really show it, let alone interact with it? Let me answer question number one. What is eutrophication? It's actually the Nordic biology talks, so bear with me. Eutrophication means the leakage of nutrients, meaning phosphorus and nitrogen, leakage of nutrients from land into the sea, which is bad. Nutrients means essentially fertilizer. Fertilizer on land is good, it makes the crops grow. Fertilizer on land, on the sea, fertilizer in the sea is bad. That's essentially it. It creates a vicious cycle of algal blooms and blue-green algae that destroys the sea, which blocks sunlight and creates these anoxic dead zones deep within the sea. And it's very problematic, especially in the Baltic Sea. Here's an aerial photograph provided us by BBC a couple of years ago of the Baltic Sea, and the turquoise parts are blue-green algae, poisonous microbacteria, destroying everything. Super bad. Here's a close-up. So everybody who lives in the countries surrounding the Baltic Sea knows that whenever the shores are like this, you can't go swimming because there's something poisonous in the water. And that poison is blue-green algae or cyanobacteria. It's not even algae, it's called algae, but it's not algae. And it's caused by the process of eutrophication. So we made a big series of LARPs about this very abstract topic. So, back to the question. How do you make a LARP about eutrophication since you can't really show it, let alone interact with it? Eutrophication is not alone. There's lots of these intangible subjects that you want to deal with in different ways, but you can't really show them as such. Hubris, the passage of generations, consumerism, pride, nuclear radiation, puberty, communism, aristocracy living off the blood of the working class. How do you interact with hubris? Well, the answer comes to us from literature. You take a huge whale, like an albino whale, and you take a man who really wants to kill that whale, even though it's impossible. That whale kills everybody. So the whale represents his hubris. And then you have a story about a man and the whale, and you make like a huge, really, really long, boring book, and you name it after the whale. What about the passage of generations? This one comes from mythology, Greek mythology, which I really like, since, there we have the giant/god Saturn, who knows that one day one of his children will come up and take his place. Well, he can't have that. He's the time god, god of time. Somebody will come and usurp his throne as the time god. So he eats his own children. You know, that's the symbol for the passage of generations. What about consumerism? A zombie movie presents consumerism in the form of zombies in the mall goers, shoppers turning into zombies. Pride, Old Man and the Sea, and the Big Fish. Nuclear radiation, Godzilla. Puberty, okay, we have a young person, and when they reach adulthood, they somehow sort of get these powers that will lead to their death, but they're also meaningful and important because that they lead to also rebirth and that kind of stuff. So you need some sort of like a vaginal symbol that will start the bleeding if you're for a young girl. So you have the Sleeping Beauty and touching the spindle. What about communism? This one comes from the realm of manifestos. Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto begins with, a spectre is haunting Europe, the spectre of communism. Aristocracy living off the blood of the working class, well, you get it. What about eutrophication? For us, okay, problematic things destroying our seas and our lives coming from the dead zones, the answer is obvious. Viking zombies. So we made a big transmedia campaign about eutrophication of the Baltic Sea by running LARPs about Viking zombies. Here's a Viking zombie in front of the Danish parliament. Inside the steamship. Attacking a politician. Attacking a Christian politician who's trying to use the power of faith to compel it. Not successful. The only way to fight the Viking zombies, aka eutrophication, is by cooperation and clean water. So our characters would be carrying clean water in their hands to ward off zombies. Here's the Schleswig-Holstein Minister of Culture warding off zombies with clean water. So, that's how you take an abstract concept, wrap it in a monster, and then have the monster interact with your characters in a LARP or in mythology or in a book or in a film or wherever. Thank you very much.
Thank you. While those guys are switching microphones, I will add one detail that I like very much about this LARP, that minister, the Schleswig-Holstein Minister of Culture, that was the actual Ofgate Minister of Culture.
Yes.
Yes. So many or most, indeed, all of these ones perhaps included actual real-world politicians and actual real-world lobbyists who are working with these issues, playing with LARPers and activists and other people. And the cunning people who did the casting in this LARP often made the politicians play the lobbyists of the opposite side and so on, actually said, after having argued the other side, they kind of have a point. And I don't know if that's good or worrying, but at least it's good. We're ready? We're moving on. Our next speaker is a game designer and student of education who has been writing and organizing LARPs since 2014. She is one of the 5 main organizers of the Finnish urban fantasy campaign Life Beyond, which is played in Saarinen. Please welcome Mirka Oinonen.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm here to talk about player-written, recurring or continuous characters in our street game, street LARP campaign, the Life Beyond. So, street game is basically LARP that's played in an urban environment, partially among non-playing civilians. And our game, The Life Beyond, has been played in Savonlinna since 2007, and it's played as trilogies, meaning that trilogies, you know that. And each game continues the story of the previous game, so we have nine games that continue the same story. Our game, the lore, is written by the Game Master team. It's about urban fantasy. The most important thing about our lore is, a veil that separates logical and magical things, and humans that are logical fade to the magical side, and then shit hits the fan. And the characters of our game are written in cooperation with the players, and typically the players continue playing the same character for at least 2 games. And and I'm gonna share some pros and cons of these player-written characters. So, positive things that we have encountered is the enthusiasm and commitment that the players are ready to invest in our game. When they get to write their own characters, they get to do just the kind of character they want to play. They can concentrate on things that they want to play. And they are also, when you play the same character for many years, you really immerse to that character. You get to know that character as a person. And you're also ready to invest more money into the props because you can use them more than just one time. The cons, they are mostly about debriefing, because when you've played one character for, say, 2 or 3 years, you really, character becomes a part of you. And when you have to let go, it's really painful. And we've had some crying, and it's difficult. So what we wanted to do, because in Finnish games, debriefing is usually pretty casual, telling stories about the game and telling stories about your character. What we wanted to do was we kind of mimicked the debriefing style of Mad About the Boys' Finnish run, which meant a more structured debrief with preset goals and preset ways of doing things. So when the debriefing started, we first made sure that everyone had slept and had food, because that is really important. And then we split the players to groups of 5 to 7, with one game master with each group. And the game master led the conversation with questions like I'm forgetting the questions right now. Like, what would you take with you of the character, and what things about your character would you like to leave behind, or how did you as a person feel about the game? And we made very clear that you should talk about yourself and your character as different things to ease letting go of that character. And the other problem was adding content to the games in between the games. In Finnish LARPs, characters are usually written by the game masters or the game makers, and the plots of the game are communicated through goals and relationships of the characters. So when we have played this trilogy's first part, we had to somehow add content to the characters. And the players felt that because they had written their own characters, that they would get to decide what happens to them next. So it was impossible for us to add anything to them. So that was a kind of disaster. And we had to make some rules and set some clear, ownership things that are kind of boring, but it was essential for us as game makers. And at that time, we also encouraged players to role-play their characters between games, and that was another disaster. What we wanted was, for the players to have a fun way of writing things for their characters, a fun way of making new relationships. And what happened was that the players that had a lot of time, it worked for them. It worked really great. But the players that, had work or school or a life that didn't have time, they got really left out of everything, and we ended up having 40 players jealous of each other and jealous of what someone else had done. And also, what was kind of awkward was that players role-played the plots that we had written them for the LARP. So there was nothing to play in the LARP because, yes. So to wrap this up, player-written recurring characters make the players more committed. It's a good thing. But however, you should be prepared for some quite intense debriefing. If you choose to let your players write their characters, clarify who's in charge of what to avoid misunderstanding. And if you give them the possibility to role-play, make rules for that, because you don't want anyone to feel left out. That's not the point. That's not fun. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
There are LARP communities in the world where playing campaigns is the norm. That means many continuous plot games. And there are LARP communities in the world where playing 3-hour games that are all one-shot stories is the norm. And then there are LARP communities which do a mix of these. And considering that we've been talking about this topic for 20 years, I think it's a little bit shocking that we're only now starting to talk about what it means to have these campaign characters, how to run them well, how to deal with character ownership, and so on. Thank you so much, Mirka, for opening this topic in the LARP talks in this manner. And I would like now for you who are all thinking, but we have 20 years of experience of this, and we have made some rules. Come and talk to me. Maybe you should also be on the LARP talks, and maybe we should talk about this all through the convention, because it's super important. And I think I saw a vampire player there also going, oh my gosh, yes. So yes. All right. Our next two speakers, Christina Leipold is a professional humanitarian and designer of EduLARPs and training scenarios, as well as a designer and co-producer of many social critique LARPs in Germany. And I think she has traveled to us from Freetown in Sierra Leone, is that right? Okay, maybe some kind of record today. Lars Kasper is a German LARPer, educator, and game designer with a passion for EduLARP. He's one of the founders of the LARP catering crew, Kampfküche. He's a jackass LARP photographer and has designed projects for kids suffering from trauma, for instance. Please welcome Tina Leipold and Lars Kasper.
No, I was on a field trip, so it's not that bad. But yeah, I traveled, and the temperature is a bit frightening for me at the moment. So bear with me if I just drop over like a lizard or something like that. Right. We thought about a really tacky title for our talk. Everybody loves George Lucas, so I thought at least that will stick with your name. Let me start with this one. About 2.5 years ago, I was asked by my employer to move to Gaziantep, which is a nice city in Turkey, working on the Syria response. The thing which differs for most humanitarian interactions, as you probably know it from the news, is that I was working there with a transitional mandate, which means our basis was not life-saving, but everything else. So people rushing to people to stop them from dying. We could do, for example, garbage collection, firefighting, and all other kind of stuff. So eventually my boss asked me, what about all those people who are suffering from trauma on a daily basis? And I said, well, before the uprising, there were about 2 psychologists in the country, so how do you want me to mobilize those? Probably they're on the run. So we said, okay, maybe look a bit into psychosocial support, civic education, non-formal education. We were not going for formal education because we were scared that schools might get bombed. And that was it. So working for a governmental agency was very conventional project work. I started writing a paper saying like, okay, let's get clowns here. Let's get people who do capoeira and maybe do some LARP. And that's when we invited the Palestinians. So we established already some kind of nice network there. They came over, did initial trainings, introducing people to the topic. And then I said, okay, maybe put some more on it. Larson was going to tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, and then Tina asked me to travel with her, and we were like, I had to pump myself up now a bit. We have these 20 years of lab experience, and we made small and big games, and of course we are both experienced in Nordic and German lab, but actually what does that mean in the end? So what we did is we traveled down there, and Tina has a lot of experience there, and I have none. I came into a total different culture, of course, with all the stereotypes we all have in our head, and I felt a bit like one of these way too fast-growing dogs, these puppies that wandering around and do not really know how they interact with everyone else. Yeah, and so we came up with a concept, and we tried to tell all the mechanics and the concepts about Nordic or German or other labs, and we of course brought videos from different labs and showed them and explained about that, and we made lectures on creative thinking, tried to make these people think out of the box, what is quite interesting if you grew up in a regime. I mean, how to think out of the box if there's only the box. And yeah, of course we also told them the wording, though that they can work in a team and talk about something. So if you don't have words, you can't talk about stuff you want to do. And this all in 4 days, no, wait, 3 days, because we also wanted to write labs with them in these 3 days, and they have to be played. So the fourth day was to play labs. That's what Tina talks about now.
So they did some mini LARPs, and I'm just going to pick the 3 most famous one for now. The first one is called Fairies and Frogs. So there was a very young, mid of her 20s lady, and she said, I want to do something on gender equality, and I'm going to be with a feminist approach. Fun part was that all the guys said, no, I'm not going to play your stupid game. This is about nothing whatsoever. So at the end, everybody wanted to play it, and it was a nice interaction, because I think they started kind of changing perspectives. And there was another one.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but it's World Women's Day today.
Oh yeah, that's why you have to do it. Anyway, I'm the one with the skirt, and I'm going to continue talking now.
Sorry.
Another one which is called Death of a Martyr, and it was a young guy about 20 years old, and he said, look, I always see these postings on Facebook of my people grieving of their lost friends from school, and I want to do a LARP which will prevent people from joining the combat, which should actually make them think beforehand and maybe eventually finding a space where they can formulate that grieving they have. And there was another one called Damascus 2025, and it's about a scenario where there is eventually peace, but nobody knows exactly how it finished, and it's it was very emotional when people ended up with the sentence of saying like, well, you left Syria and you left us behind, and this is why there's no soul in this country anymore. And for us as well, it was a very emotional experience. We also learned that it's for young women from Syria not that easy to dance in front of strange men, which are not part of their family. And we learned that it's not all about just tackling your trauma, but just about relieving your mind and going on holiday when you do LARP.
We not only learned that, there's some more we learned. For instance, we came there and had a strong focus on Nordic Larp, and then we found out that the German Larp tradition put much more into that than we thought before.
You don't want to talk about that? Oh, all right, I'm going to talk about that, sorry. So I think one of the lessons we also draw was there's no stringent evolution of LARP. People enter at so many different stages, and they can come up with similar conclusions. For us, it became a bit the experience of importing and exporting LARP at the same time.
Yeah, and for me, one of the strongest things I learned is we all use the word war stories of the LARPs to describe what we went through in the LARP. And actually, I can't use it anymore. Sorry. So, before Tina ends now, if you want to hear more, we will be on the Sommerkopter and talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And now?
We have a message from our friend Bassem. He's a Syrian LARPer, of course, and this is how we want to finish.
Hello everybody, I'm Bassem from Syria. Now I am a game master, so please prepare yourself to receive many Syrian LARP games. Thank you.
NordicLarpTalks.org. One of the talks from last year also gives a little glimpse or touches on this. One of our Palestinian LARP designer friends also talked a little bit about this project. Then, also, I just want to say when you said war stories, yeah, I got goosebumps on my legs. I think we're going to stop using that now. Thank you. Thanks. Our next speaker is a stand-up comedian, writer, performance and theatre artist, and LARPer. He recently lectured in the field of art LARP at Stockholm Academy of Dramatic Arts and is the co-creator of the Walkabout series of performance games, as well as of the Lovers Matchmaking Agency. Please welcome Jamie MacDonald.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about gender. Surprise, surprise. There are a couple of games that I wanted to sort of talk about a little bit. One is called Mad About the Boy. You probably heard about it. It was first played in 2010, organized in Norway by Lindahl, Edlund, and Plaum. And then there was a sister game, or a brother game, if you like, called It's a Man's World. That was first organized last summer, 2015, by Gisen, Fladvad, Sandqvist, and Julia. So those are the two games that I'm going to talk about. What happens in Mad About the Boy is based on the comic book or the graphic novel, Y, The Last Man. So it's set 3 years into the future. Everything is like it is today, except tomorrow, all the men die. Everybody with a Y chromosome dies. And the LARP is set 3 years in the future of that. And so obviously it's a LARP with all women in it. They did 2 runs of this game at first, and there was a run where all of the players were also women, as well as the characters. And they did a second run right after it, where there were players who were men and women, but they were all playing women as characters. And of course, in the story, there is one last man, so he shows up and all hell breaks loose, and what a great LARP. It's a Man's World is the opposite scenario where everybody with 2 X chromosomes dies. All the women are dead and all the men are left. And there's one last woman. I have an interesting perspective because I'm the only person to have played in both games. I transitioned gender in the middle. So I have played the XX chromosome, Mad About the Boy, the female, all-female Mad About the Boy, and I've played the all-male It's a Man's World. Now, you can have exclusive games like this. Exclusive games can be kind of an interesting thing to play because you have all the players belonging to an existing group. They have some shared territory that they can talk about. They can talk about some things that are really kind of interesting to them without anybody else coming around and interrupting them and making them think about different things. But you can also play, obviously, that all characters belong to a specific group. And this is something that we design a lot into our games without really, sometimes without thinking about it a lot, and sometimes very consciously. Some of our most important or most recognized games in the Nordic Larp community are geopolitical games or historical games. There's Just a Little Lovin', there's Halat Hisar, there's Kabul. All of these are games that rely on actual historical experiences of actual historical people. And so there's kind of a level of we're borrowing from something that has happened to somebody else. So you have the possibility of making exclusive games, and then you have a one-to-one off-game and in-game authentic identity. You can play, really get into what is it to be a woman only with women around. And there is something to that. It's quite interesting. And obviously you have no worries at all about appropriation. Right? Okay. Now, just to challenge what I first said already, representing a group in its entirety without any exceptions is impossible because all categories of people have exceptions. I'm a trans person, I can speak to that. We don't even really have a category of, alive and dead. Even there are individuals, human individuals, who define the category of whether they're alive or dead. We don't know. That is a basic thing, and we can't figure that out. So you end up with degrees of leniency, meaning that you allow certain people into your game who have similar experience or who are studying the experience or are respectful towards the experience, or they're just kind of close enough. Or there's nobody else around. Which may also happen. And there are also kind of interesting things that happen in these exclusive kind of worlds that are built. For instance, if you take the world of Mad About the Boy and It's a Man's World. Now, it's based on chromosomes. So all the men and all the women dying is just not true. If you take a fairly conservative estimate of 0.2% of the population identifying and actually having taken treatment as transgender, you would have thousands of people in every city who are visibly still male, visibly female. So the appearance of this last man, this last woman, would not have the same effect that it actually would. We built this world, we built this game on this assumption that doesn't actually reflect what the reality would be. And the question is one-to-one what we really want to do? Is it the idea that we really want to just have identity politics kind of repeated in LARPs? Here's a picture of Mad About the Boy. Everybody always wants to ask, like, what are the differences between the two games? You played an all-female game and an all-male game. What are the differences? Well, in Mad About the Boy, the all-female run, the man showed up and we immediately sat down in a circle and had a meeting for about 3.5 hours. And it was an awesome meeting. I loved it. It was my favorite LARP experiences ever. I absolutely adored it. And then the mixed run. Now the thing is that this might just be because it happened to go that way. It might be because of the certain players. I can't say. It was just that run. But there was a little bit more action. There was a little bit more violence in the mixed run. So there's that. Then you had It's a Man's World, which basically is like a meeting, but there's a ball. And it was very similar. It was actually very, people ask me, does an all-female game differ from an all-male one? And I have to say, having played both games, I really want to be able to tell you the differences. And I'm really struck by the similarities. There was a lot of like heteronormativity prevailing in the sense of people missed the other so much. People identified themselves in terms of an absent other. There was so much longing, so much desire towards this last human who shows up. It was very, very moving in both. There was a sense of shared community, but hopelessness and helplessness in both, without the other. And the only thing that really kind of differed was kind of a small detail in that fertility feels different if there's only one woman or only one man, because there's a limited amount of people and time. So it does actually, it makes a little bit of a difference. And I want to speak really quickly about an accidental inclusive world. And I say accidental because I'm not sure that this was done on purpose, but this is what happened. At College of Wizardry, which is the famous, everybody knows Danish and Polish collaboration. I mean, looking at the clothing there, I would say that aside from a few kind of tendencies towards suits and dresses, there's not a lot of gender normativity going on. But that's because the point was not your gender, the point was your magic. And what happened that was really weird in this game, and I'll just show you a little clip of like how people do battle. You can see here that the person who is the victim of the spell, the receiver of the spell, always decides what the outcome is. Now this means, in effect, that you can be the biggest guy, and you can come to a fight with a girl like that, and if she's got a tougher spell, if she's got better magic, you're screwed, that's it. You're done. And it removed the normal male-female size difference, sort of strength difference. And that is a really, really unusual thing to happen in LARP. So strangely enough, College of Wizardry was one of the most gender-inclusive games I've ever encountered. And it was sort of by accident. So my parting shots would be, you can run the same LARPs for in and out groups. When all women play Mad About the Boy, they get something really interesting. When men join and play Mad About the Boy as women, they get something else, but it's also really interesting. So you can also workshop the out-group with the in-group to have them learn more, to kind of make a collaboration about this. It's very interesting to address exclusive emotions. How many times have you had a LARP that's about motherhood for one character? Quite a lot, especially if you're a girl. You may have played that. But where a LARP where it's about motherhood for everybody is actually very interesting. And that's an unusual perspective, so why not play it? And then, as with College of Wizardry, game mechanics can create equality and inclusivity, even in invisible or unintended ways. And that's all for me. Thank you.
I'm just going to say before we start the next thing that one thing that wrong Martin, right? Martin Nilsson. Yeah, good. Because I was going to tell a story, so that's great. Right here. Yes. I think that we noticed because it would have been weird with the slides. So I had the great pleasure of playing with Jamie in College of Wizardry, and of course, when you play in a magical universe, the fact that the player changes sex between the first part of the game and the sequel the following year turns out no big deal. Like, it's very strange, but it wasn't a big issue. The character had some kind of magical accident. It happened between the games. We didn't talk about it a lot. Character super happy before, super happy after. It's fine. Anyway, it was completely not. And of course, if you can, it would be so strange in that universe if you can turn into like stone or be like an unhappy ghost for centuries, or you know, like you're gonna split this tree man in half so that you can take part of the soul of this plant. And like these were the kinds of things that were happening completely normally on an everyday basis. That kind of thing, so not core to like the experience. And then of course, yeah, sex is possible. Like sex becomes part of the universe and not very important, which is, I think, also maybe an accidental inclusivity. But it's also fantastic. As Jamie said, it's just not about that. Okay, I'm just going to see that these guys have seats. They do. Then we're going to start this part of the presentation. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, I also have some practical information. I'm going to have to ask all of you a favor. If you've been online today, could you take out your phone and just go in like airplane mode, for instance? Because it turns out if you're all on auto open, that's not great for the stream. I'm sorry. Our next speaker runs Alibier, an Oslo-based company that makes educational LARPs. He's an enthusiastic member of the Black Box LARP scene. He's the head organizer of Grenselandet Chamber LARP Festival and the Black Box Deichman Chamber LARP series in Oslo, and one of the founders and main organizers of the LARP Writer Summer School. Please welcome Martin Nielsen.
Thank you. This is a little rerun of a talk some of you might have heard before, but I have added some new elements, so I hope you will still find it interesting even if you were at Knutepunkt last year. Since 2010, the chamber LARP scene has been going through some terrific changes. At least I believe so. And I will spend the next 15 minutes telling the story about how that happened and give some analysis of what I think it means. Many, many years ago, when I was still mostly doing fantasy LARP, I heard these rumors about this strange Finnish LARP where people were fooling around in their underwear in green light and lots of flour. What the hell is this? And some years later, I was really impressed when I heard about New Voices in Art that was brought into an arts festival. But after what I heard, it was quite different from normal LARPs. So might not have been that impressive anyway. Just 5 years ago, nobody expected Knutepunkt to have a black box. This year, Knutepunkt is on a boat, and despite that, they have a black box. And in Norway, the last few years, around half of the LARPs organized and nearly all of their chamber LARPs are black box LARPs. So how did we get here? It's 6 years since the Nordic Larp book came out. This was still before the chamber LARP revolution, and it featured mostly large-scale productions. However, there were a few early predecessors of the chamber LARPs Nordic chamber LARPs in this book, notably Luminescence, which was not only about being naked or in underwear in flower, but about cancer, and a quite strong LARP for those who took part, and Inside, Outside. In his discussion on whether LARP is art, in the same book, Jaakko Stenroos notes that LARPs are sporadically invited to join art festivals, but it is rare that LARPs not created with an institutionalized art world in mind would make their way to galleries and museums. Whether these tailored LARPs will develop into a subgenre of art gallery LARPs remain to be seen. I would say that this prediction is now quite close to becoming a reality, in the name of Black Box LARP. But despite these early predecessors of Luminescence and Inside Outside and a few others, it took many years for the chamber LARP revolution to gain momentum. By the end of the first decade of the 2000s, the Jeepen movement had already done a great deal to bring together the free-form tradition from Festival to the LARP community. And at this time, there was a surge in the creation of tape LARPs. Inspired by the Dogville movie, LARP designers started to just use tape on the floor to make walls, and in that way making very inexpensive LARPs, flexible LARPs, with very, very aggressive transparency. At the same time, there were new opportunities for playing these LARPs. Prolog and the LARP Factory in Oslo were two of the important early networks and conventions that now make up the backbone of the chamber LARP production in the Nordic countries. Prolog was offering venues, and it was offering players that LARP rights had a hard time accessing before. And it quickly became a catalyst in getting new chamber LARPs and better chamber LARPs. The festival introduced a 4-hour limit, but perhaps one of the most important things that happened with these venues at Prolog was that the scene certainly got access to professional lighting and sound equipment, and of course the LARP writers could not resist using this when it was available. The LARP Factory was a network that in Oslo that aimed to make short LARPs easily available to the public. It should be as easy to go to a LARP as to go to a movie. And they ran a LARP every month from 2009 to 2012. This idea also spread to several other cities, and it made the chamber LARPs more popular among all over the Nordic countries and other places in Europe too. However, for the first year of the LARP Factory, they had yet to run a single black box LARP. During the fall of 2010, there was an event in Oslo with the tagline, "From Sweden with tape." This was a handful of Swedish LARP designers that were invited to run tape LARPs in Oslo. And that is the event that we now know as Grenselandet. With Grenselandet, Nordic chamber LARP designers got a second venue where black boxes were available. And Grenselandet copied Prolog's 4-hour time limit, which meant that this was now about to be the industry standard for black box scenarios. But with the conventions, also there was the need for the scenarios to be more easily available to the players. You could no longer require them to come prepared. And that meant that the pre-LARP workshops got a new and more important role than it had before. It was no longer a supplement to the preparations the players did themselves. It was an integrated part of the LARP design. However, the festivals was not the only place where interesting stuff happened at this time. 2010 and 2011 also saw two large-scale black box LARPs, Delirium and Capo. Sometimes these LARPs are not considered chamber LARPs because they are so much larger in terms of production and participants, duration, all kinds of scales. However, I would say that these two LARPs have been very, very important for the chamber LARP tradition. They were run in a black box, they had active use of lights and active use of sounds and props, very physical, relying on workshops. They had all the hallmarks of the small-scale chamber LARPs too. And Capo, with 180 players, made these techniques available and broadcast to a much larger audience than before. Moving the LARPs from the scenario-specific locations and into these black boxes, that also opened doors to more traditional houses of art. In 2010, the Bader-Meinhof experiment, a LARP originally written for 2 specific apartments in Oslo, was rewritten and run in the theatre black box of Riksdagen in Stockholm. However, it was, in my opinion, in 2012 that the chamber LARP revolution really gained momentum. A small festival called Black Box Copenhagen put up 5 scenarios at the Huset in central Copenhagen. They wanted to foster experimentation, so they did not require any manuscripts to be written, they did not have any competitions, not any prizes. The only criteria was that the LARP should be innovative and it should fulfill 2 out of the following 4 criteria. It should actively use lights, actively use sound, actively use props, and actively using audience. And I would say that Black Box Copenhagen was fundamental in defining the black box genre as we know it today. While it is not yet solved, really, how we deal with the audience problems, I think we have been really good at the other three. Black Box Copenhagen also saw the premiere of White Death, which is probably one of the most influential chamber LARPs in recent years. While early art chamber LARPs such as Luminescence also experimented with language restrictions, White Death went further and abolished all verbal communication. This is a design choice that has been replicated with success in a lot of other LARPs since then. For example, The Haste, Temple Open Blind Beings, Life on a String, many others. 2012 also saw another important event. It was the first year of the LARP Writer Summer School. This is a week-long intensive course in LARP design, and this year's school is still open for applications if anyone are interested. The event has fostered a lot of new LARP designers creating numerous LARPs, and usually they are LARPs that has the hallmarks of modern chamber LARP design. Such as here we have a picture from Have You Come Here to Play Jesus. I think some people might go into that later tonight. These LARPs have been running at festivals all over the Nordic countries and other places in Europe. Another interesting thing with the LARP Writer Summer School was that if we look at the application lists from year to year, it clearly reveals an increasing interest from people from the art communities, and not only artists that are already LARPers, also non-LARPer artists that are interested in the scene. Their number is increasing year by year. However, another big improvement in this scene didn't happen until 2013, and that was when documentation of chamber LARPs finally became the standard. The festival and the freeform scene had a long history of writing down their scenarios, while the chamber LARP tradition, with a few exceptions, hardly even had reruns. With the publication of this book, LARPs from the Factory, 23 scripts from the LARP Factory were made available to the whole world, making the world's eyes open to this format and these chamber LARPs. And the same year, Stockholm Scenario Festival was run for the first time, and they also demanded all the speakers there, all the LARP writers there, to make manuscripts for their LARPs, making even more scripts available to the world. This made the gospel spread to many countries, such as the Netherlands, which was hardly visible in the Nordic chamber LARP scene before, now being a major exporter of chamber LARPs. So, to sum up a little bit, we have gone from scenario-specific venues to black boxes. We have gone from designers' own notes to proper manuscripts. We have no longer players required to prepare, they just meet up and play. And while we used to spend more time on play before, now we spend more time on workshops. The duration of the LARPs are shorter than before, and the physical elements are stronger than before. You usually don't need a costume anymore, you show up basically how I'm dressed right now, and we use more lights, more sound. We no longer do casting. So a lot of important things have changed between 2010 and now. However, I would say that the most important change is the change of venue to the black box, which is in a way fundamental for many of the other changes. One example of how much this has gained popularity is this LARP that was made at the laboratory. It's called Bring Your Own Bottle, and it takes place in a bar. And I told the organizers, I can get you a bar you can play this in. But they preferred a black box. They wanted the flexibility, they wanted the standardization that made it more easily rerunnable for other venues later over a realistic venue. So, to sum up a little bit more, I think we have become workshop designers. We still design story, characters, scenography and so forth, but the workshop is no longer something you add on to make your LARP a little bit better. It's an integrated and maybe the most important part of the scenario. We have more acknowledgements from other scenes, other spheres of art. Thanks to this, moving into the art houses is more easy with the new format. And I think we're making LARPs more accessible, they are more flexible, more easy to run, more approachable, but we still haven't solved the audience problem. In Oslo, we run LARPs at Black Box Statement every month, and we had one run with Adam James, a performance artist and LARPer from London, coming in. It attracted a lot of new people, had never been to LARPs before. But when they realized that they had to play, unfortunately some of them left. Many stayed to play as well. The contract that people are used to as audience is very strong. The tradition there is very strong. People are used to that they have to, they're afraid of ruining the play, afraid of ruining other people's experience, and therefore they're also afraid of taking part. We haven't yet found a way to design around this, and there are some attempts that I'd like to show to you, but I still think we need to find a way to address that. LARPs, as long as we only accommodate people as participants and not spectators, there will always be a lot of people who are anxious to take part. In the West is a project by the Mix Collective where you have very clear instructions from headphones to give people a very, very clear alibi to what to do and to avoid this anxiety of doing something wrong. This is a picture from the Temple of the Blind Beings. In this LARP, people just move straight in without any workshop in the beginning. In a way, it's integrated, but they are also told very, very clearly what to do. And then perhaps my favorite example is this one, the Fragile Life of Lost Souls, which is a scenario where the audience is integrated. They have masks, they move around, and they are able to see the LARP from different angles without interfering. However, they can interact, but that's something they opt in to do, and it's something that players opt in to respond to. So in that sense, nobody are forced to do anything, and the anxiety is kept at a lower level. I think this is the way we need to think regarding audience, that we cannot just adapt the model from theaters where you have spectators on a terrace. We need to find ways for LARP-wise audience if we want to succeed with that. So finally, some predictions for the future. I think we will have even more accessible LARPs that more people can play. I think we will have even shorter formats where maybe we will have some kind of, that like tabletops have poetry role plays, maybe we'll have Pachacucha LARPs, I don't know, some really short things. I think we will have manuscripts that are given author rights so that we can see reruns with adaptations and still giving credit, which is more common in the theatre sphere. And I think we will have Finland back in the game. I said it last week, I still hope for you to create more stuff to the Nordic Chamber LARP scene. And finally, I hope to see more large-scale black box LARP like this beautiful scenario Before We Wake that was run this summer. Thank you.
We're working on it, Martin.
Great.
All right. I think it's so strange because at the same time as this chamber LARP development has been happening, of course, we also have the idea of this professionalization and the commercialization of the big cinematic multiplayer 360 LARP. And by multiplayer, I mean like, I guess massive multiplayer, which in LARP terms is, in Nordic LARP terms is like 200 or 600 people. And we're going to hear a little bit about from people working with that side of things later tonight in the last two talks, but we're going to stick for now in the area of what Martin was just speaking of. And to see that I have the right. No, that's not it at all. Let's try that again. We're back. Yes. Our next speakers are LARPers and LARP designers from Belarus. Currently they are organizing the Minsk International LARP Festival in 2016, which I think is in April and we should all go. They have previously taught and facilitated at LARP Writer Summer School and at the LARPoratory. Their day jobs are as educators as at, I'm so sorry. Their day jobs are as educators at a university in Belarus. Please welcome Masha and Zhenya Karachun.
about some characteristics or features of black box LARPs in Belarus, which are typical of the Belarusian Nordic Larp community. And I would like to start with that we basically have a really small and young community. And it grew from the Larp Writers Summer School, which is a part of Belarusian Norwegian project. And the school is held in summer in Lithuania. Basically, I can say that it's aimed at teaching people how to design and how to create LARPs. Thus, we can say that we actually started with black box LARPs. What we do now is we try to catch up with all the tendencies in the sphere. We try to adopt it to our needs or some specific features, and we try to create something of our own.
Yep. So we didn't grow up with a strong LARPing tradition at the back. What happened, what is the result of that, is that we are not influenced or have very little influence from tabletops, Russian freeform, sci-fi LARPs, or fantasy LARPs. This, in its turn, also accounts for the fact that the LARPs are generally not based on works of fiction or books or movies. They deal with mostly social issues, or they touch upon a message LARP designers want to deliver. The other thing here, we love black box LARPs. Where does this love come from? As it turned out, for the two of us, and probably for the Belarusian Nordic LARP community, these LARPs turned out to be the most intensive, powerful, and emotional, and that, in its turn, is something that we are looking for when we're playing a LARP, and this is what we focus on when we design.
So basically, we would like to have very emotional and very intimate LARPs for our players. That's why we try to make it real simple. So what we mean is that usually we do not regularly use lots of sounds and lights and some complicated meta techniques. So basically we try to keep the structure simple and clear. At least we try to do it. Not many activities are happening in-game. For example, I would like to talk about Have You Come Here to Play Jesus? That's a LARP which was designed several years ago, and it touches upon such a controversial phenomenon as euthanasia or mercy killing. It lasts for about 4 hours, with 1 hour of actual playing time, which is mostly about character deciding on fate of a paralyzed family member. So this simple. And we basically use only one meta technique, and also we use some sounds at the beginning and at the end of LARP. So it may seem and sound super simple, but it turns out to be quite powerful.
So as we've mentioned before, we have a really young community, and LARPing is in no way mainstream in Belarus. So what we are aiming what we are aiming at right now is we want to attract more people to it. So the people who come to play the LARPs are inexperienced, or mostly they are first-timers. And for that reason, I would say that we pay a lot of attention to workshops, icebreakers, and warm-ups, which we consider to be one of the most important parts of the LARPs. I'll try to expand on that so as to make it clearer. When we were to some of the festivals in the Scandinavian countries, we come to a LARP and there is no warm-up or one, and it's like, yeah, let's do it, and then we continue. It is expected, it is assumed that the players are ready, that they are ready to play in, to indulge, and yeah, they're safe. But that is not the case in Belarus. The players who come are usually, not to say scared, they are worried of what's going to happen to them. They don't know, and our task is to make sure that they feel at ease, that they are relaxed, that they are ready to dive into the unknown. So we try to let them enter the magic circle, and it's done by extensive use of warm-ups and workshops, which are aimed at safety, giving the players the feeling of safety. Only after that we introduce characters we develop the characters and character relations and so on.
An interesting thing in our view is that we do not regularly have pre-written characters. So we try to leave much freedom for our players. So we usually have them creating their characters during a long course of workshopping, so they try to do it to their liking. And from our personal experience, we can say that usually these kind of characters are kind of easy to immerse into, because they're probably created and kind of walked into or even felt into. So again, I would like to take the example of having come here to play Jesus. During the workshops, which are about 2.5 hours, the players, they are trying to create their characters, the relations between characters together, and they think of an inner conflict, which is a driving force for their character. So that all happens during the workshops. But again, as we have mostly inexperienced players, sometimes it's really difficult for them to come up with something really good and cool for their characters. So usually we try to provide them with some examples or prompts they can use or they might use during the game to help them not to be scared, not to be worried. So that's why we use it. And basically, it can give them more alibi. It can help them distinguish a character from a player.
Being quite new to LARPing as a community and in general, we don't also have a lot of workshops that we know of. So what we do is we try to think of them, to create them, to invent them in a way. It's not that, yeah, we know that there are some workshops, but we haven't tried them out for 100 times and we know that they work. So we do create a lot, and we think that sometimes it can be good, sometimes not. We experiment, what turns out, turns out. So when we start designing a LARP, we usually start with an idea, then we try to put it into a black box. What happens is that we see a black box as a pretty powerful tool in itself, because this simplicity allows you to concentrate on the experience, which is the thing that we love. What is next? If we are to talk about the prospects of the Belarusian Nordic Larp community, I would say that we would be aiming for large-scale black box LARPs, aiming at social issues. Thank you.
Out into the 360 world. Our final two speakers are both working this year, the next few years, with bringing aspects of the Nordic LARP tradition, sometimes in very hands-on ways, to player groups who haven't really played with them before. They're doing it commercially, and I think we all want them desperately to succeed, and I think we're all also kind of like super jealous, like this is your job. No? But it is, in fact, their jobs. Our next speaker is the co-founder and president of Learn Larp, a US-based LARP production and edu-LARP consulting firm. She's also the co-lead organizer, writer, and producer of New World Magiscola, an immersive wizard school LARP in the Nordic style set in a new magical universe based on North American traditions. And I should say that it is intimately related to the College of Wizardry universe as well, that some of you may be aware of. In its 4 runs this summer, you heard it, 4 runs, Magiscola will introduce around 600 mostly American players to rules-light, consent-based, character-driven LARPing. Good luck. Please welcome
Thank you so much. I was really humbled to be asked to come here from the United States into these hallowed halls and give a Nordic Larp talk. And I can only assume it's because you figured my English would be really good. I'll try not to disappoint. Today's talk is not exactly about New World Magiscola, but it's about a design principle that we're using in New World Magiscola, and it's a little bit more theoretical than some of the stuff that we've talked about a little bit today, so I hope I'll be able to make it interesting. I'm calling it Larp bouldering, and if it doesn't make sense now, I hope in 10 minutes it will make sense then. So I started from two fundamental questions, one which you guys have been wrestling with and we've been wrestling with. How do you acclimate new players to your game, players who've never maybe played in the Nordic style before, if they have varying abilities and experience and styles and motivations, right? And that led to the question, how do you design a game so that every player, no matter their ability, their experience, their style, their motivation, can feel safe, and that they can find something engaging and challenging and empowering in the Larp, right? We want everyone to have a great game, and we want everyone to be able to play. And so, our first reaction was this. Done. But we had a little bit of wine, and we decided we would do it, right? And so we said, we have to take this crazy herd of LARPers that comes to our game, right? Like, this is your party, right? They're not all sheep. They're not a herd, right? They don't all pay attention. They don't all follow the rules. They sure as heck don't do what you tell them to do, right? One of them's going to be the llama, and they're going to spit, right? And they're going to run away. But we have to deal with this, right? We have LARPers who come to the game, they're experienced LARPers, and they're looking for all the drama, right? And then we have brand new LARPers, and at New World Magiscola we have about 30% of people who've never LARPed before. And we think that is fantastic. It also scares us, right? Because we have a huge responsibility because we're the custodians of their experience. And so they also come to us with a variety of bodies, right, and abilities. So we have disabled players, and we have able-bodied players, and we have cisgendered and transgendered, and variety of sexualities. And all of these people need to be able to see themselves in the game and to find something for themselves in the game, right? And so I should have went back to the ha-ha-ha note, right? But we kept going, right? And so there's some things I could pull from education theory that sort of helped us with this design. And that's the idea here, is that the fairness, right, is that we design the LARP, and it's that tree in the background, right? And we tell all these players here, the monkey, the penguin, the elephant, the goldfish, and the bull, and the seal, that they have to climb the tree. Everybody do it, right? And it's fine, it's fair. They all have the same task that they have to do, right? Except that some of them have different abilities than others. And the other thought here is this notion here of equity and justice, right? Where some of our players aren't going to need any help at all, right? Some of them are going to need a little bit of help, and some of them are going to need a lot of help in order to be able to access this content, right? And so how can we do this? We're designing one game, right? And so we look to the concept of differentiation, which has been around for a good 30 years in education. And it's this idea that not everyone is the same, so we need to tailor the experience for the individual learners. And there's 4 things you can differentiate, right? You can differentiate the process, which in a LARP is how you play, right? You can differentiate the content, which is the world and the characters and the things, the plot. You can differentiate the product, which is what we want them to play, the genre, right? The world. Or we can differentiate the environment, and by that we mean the physical environment, but we also mean the emotional environment, right? So I can't, my LARP is not set in a 15th century castle, because they don't exist in the United States. But also because, well, we can't take a 15th century castle and magic up an elevator, right? But we can also need to worry about the emotional environment. Do people feel that they're willing to take a risk, right? Because LARPing is risk. Last night, before I started to play Into the Line, I was ready to turn around and bail, right? Because I was frightened, and I'm an experienced LARPer, but you have a non-experienced LARPer, they're excited to come, and they're scared. All right, so some sample strategies we'll talk about later, but this is how you move through a LARP, right? I might be on the orange path, but I might jump over to the red path, or on the green path, but everybody's following their own path through a LARP. Not like the herd of wildebeests crossing the river. So, metaphor. In education, we had scaffolding, which was this other idea that you build this little structure around your LARP, and you can take it away when people have mastered it. But the important concept I want you to have from this side is this notion of zone of proximal development. Fancy term, right? Which basically means that there's a sweet spot where somebody wants to do something and believes they can do something and feels safe enough to want to do it. Okay? And so taking those things together and this idea, big word again, semiotic scaffolding, which means there's some signs that will help them get through it. We got this idea of LARP bouldering. All right, so the LARP is the wall, and you build the handholds and the footholds that go on the wall for the variety of players that are going to be there. It also lets you get in a little bit of cultural context, because in the United States, when you go bouldering, you have to wear a helmet, and you have to sign a waiver, and the wall can only be but so high, or else you have to have a harness, right? And then I went bouldering in Copenhagen, and I didn't have to sign a waiver, and I could get a beer. So even the walls are a little different, but the idea of these handholds and these footholds, and that there are many ways to cross the wall and many different challenges, that helps you accommodate difference and gives opportunities for support. Because this could be the same wall, right? And the muscular, experienced climber on the left is going to have access to handholds and footholds that the children on, I got my lefts and rights mixed up. The muscular climber on the right. Good thing and the children on the left there. And even the children on the left are different from each other, right? They're going to have different levels of moxie and comfortability and different levels of strength. And one of them maybe tried this before and fell off, and so they're a little nervous, right? And we have this at our LARPs, right? Because we have people who are brand new to LARP. We have people who are your uber experts and know everything, and they will tell you. And we have the people who are LARPers on the rebound, which they quit LARP for a little while, but now they're coming back, or they've just broken up with their old LARP, right? And so there's so many different cultures and styles that need to get across this wall, and they're not going to take the same path. So how do we build the handholds and footholds? So one thing we can think about is difference in support. So the LARPer on the left has a harness and a helmet, and they're being supported by some others who are bearing some of the weight, right? And they're also being encouraged by the people around them and on the ground who can see things that they might not be able to see, right? If you've been on the bouldering wall, sometimes the next handhold is right there, but you can't see it. Either you can't see it literally, or you can't see it because you're stuck and you're scared. And so what you need is someone else to go to your right, reach up. If you reach up just a little bit more, you'll have it, right? And you're like, I can't. No, you've got it, right? And so we need to build those things into the design. So here's the text-heavy slide. Here are some ways we're trying to build these things into the design for New World Magiscola. So we're varying the types of characters that are written. Some people need a bare minimum of a character design, and then they want to go with it from there. Other people, that's paralysis of choice, right? They don't have enough information, enough handholds and footholds. Relationship building before the LARP with character coaches. Some of you may have volunteered to character coach already, and if you haven't, I would love for you to. We'll give you 5 or so new players, and you can connect with them over social media and email and help walk them through the process of building a character and feeling comfortable. Little bits of teaser morsels, right, where you lay out just a little bit of information that can help get you over the hump. Choices within limits, gender-neutral characters, which is something that College of Wizardry does, right? All of the characters for New World Magiscola are written in second person and non-gendered, but we've also modeled that in the world lore, where one of our house founders is non-binary gender, and even in our Unsoiled Heritage, yes, Unsoiled Heritage is the new pureblood, there are families that are polyamorous and with same-sex parents, and other things that we're modeling so that it's not just given permission, but it's actively in the world. so that they're there for you to grip onto. And giving people the right amount of information that they need. Some people want all the information, right? And they feel cheated if they don't have it. Other people need very little. So there's some examples there. And so here we are where we've marked semiotically some of the paths that are going across the wall. So start here. Take the yellow path, right? But then there are the people, they start on the yellow path and they get confident, they jump over to the orange path, right? And then you have the people like I always was growing up going, I don't want the yellow one or the orange one or the red one, right? I'm going to start over here and I'm going to go across my own thing, right? And so you want to design that there are handholds and footholds that allow them to jump paths, because sometimes people get the confidence 30 minutes into the LARP. So that's pretty much the idea of LARP bouldering and the kinds of ways that we're trying to build that in. And I hope that made some sense. And thank you very much.
One more to go. You've been super patient and enthusiastic, and I don't know what's going on over there. So, the last talk is a very specific thing. Our next speaker, whom I will formally introduce in just a moment, has stood around in public, out on the internet and in the world, and said things like, "We're going to make World of Darkness more like Nordic Larp." And I think that there are people both in the community here and people out on the internet who are World of Darkness players, participants, fans, super fans, who are also wondering, what does this mean? Because of course, I think as the range of talks that we've heard today demonstrates, that could mean any number of things. Is vampire from now on going to be all black box? Maybe. Maybe not. I think we're going to find out. So. Our next speaker is an Emmy-winning game and transmedia designer with deep roots in Nordic Larp, who has recently taken on the job they call lead storyteller for the World of Darkness universe at White Wolf Publishing. He's also professionally Dracula. Please welcome Martin Eriksson.
Thanks a lot for letting me close out the day and bringing in the night, as it's with me. So this talk is going to waver on some sort of balance between nostalgia and forward-looking, and also asking questions, because we're 4 months into the process, and where I come from is clear. Where we take it forward is for us to decide. So let's talk a bit about that. How many of you have any kind of gaming relationship to this item? Okay, no pressure here. So, how many of you were first in contact with the idea of LARP through anything related to a White Wolf product? Yeah, there's quite a number, like a third of the people or something. For me, it was certainly one of the points of entry. For people who are not familiar with World of Darkness, it's a series of interconnected tabletop role-playing games about monsters and creatures of myth hidden among us, manipulating us and dealing with tumultuous inner struggles. It's a world that has been made in many incarnations, even a rotten Aaron Spelling TV show that I shouldn't have mentioned. But yes, it was super powerful in the 90s. But it has been, for many of us, replaced by activity within Nordic Larp or private art practices or other things. And I don't think I'm alone that I've sort of remembered this from my teenage years, and now looking back with great enthusiasm to what could come next. I'm going to begin by looking back a little bit at this, and I will go out on a limb and say that a lot of us actually encountered the concept of trying to say something real with a game or a role-playing game through White Wolf games. The political undertones of vampire, and maybe especially werewolf, the apocalypse, have always been very, very present. And I know certainly for sure that I was triggered by this, going into more deeper attempts to formulate questions around the world we live in through this. And I don't think I'm alone. Mark Reinhagen's complete passion for what he's doing shines through the first edition of Vampire, including an afterwards and tells about how this is an ambition to make a game exploring the mechanics of evil for use of us all to become aware of the temptations within us. Let's just look quickly at some of these other things that are there. The rage against an uncaring system, millennia old, built on traditions of faith. The idea that Earth is dying and needs to be saved from human pollution. The idea that reality is subjective and can be manipulated by will, and there are many, many different perspectives on reality, is somewhat core to the questioning of reality that is inherent in Nordic Larp tradition. There's a lot of inner struggles, there's angst, there's existential questions, especially if Wraith is fully loaded with them. There's a feeling of, in Changeling, about playfulness versus banality, whether it's a game about midlife crisis or about us as LARPers reaching for something like untouchable and bringing it down into reality. So I think that a lot of us encounter these ideas first here. It's also always been a setting that takes place in a world of darkness, even if it's heavily focused on the US. And some treatments have not been pitch perfect, let's say that. It has included many different cultures for a long time. So let's just speak to that for one moment. Oh yeah, let's take a quick step forward here, because the slides ended up in that way. When we looked at sort of, okay, what do we want to go with this now? Where do we want to take this? We set on 3 pillars for White Wolf that we think makes these games unique and stand out, and these worlds be a bit different from the others, especially on the computer games market and tabletop market. It's not an adventure story. It's not a story where bigger shoulder pads and upgraded guns win the day. It's a story where your relationships and the love of your friends, or the ability to stab someone in the back at the opportune moment, or have the cool clothes to get into the club, is more important than sheer brute strength. It's stories that explore forbidden or difficult subjects, a lot of time reflecting it. It is also something where most conflict resolution is not necessarily all centered around violence. These 3 points, as you may see, have direct bearing from sort of the heritage I have among you guys. And I think also they are points that we were influenced by White Wolf rather than the other way around. But that is now to come, because now we're here and a new night has started, and it's time to get to see what we can bring in. So, the Nordic Larp scene is amazing when it comes to inclusivity and allowing a broad tapestry of different gender perspectives and social perspectives to enter the game. Vampire has always been about kinky queer monsters. The world of darkness has drawn in more people of different lifestyles, different sexualities, and also such a simple thing as girls into the role-playing scene. And this is something that's phenomenally important to us, and of course something that we want to enforce even more with the mechanics that we have developed over years. The same thing about, let's not have another Gypsy's source book presented in the way that it was, but rather let's realize that the monsters are everywhere, and allow writers from the actual locations that we write about to address them with deep knowledge. And also, let's not maybe set aside the other to lift them up as something special and magical. There is something very, very equal in saying that all cultures are bullshit. There's evil everywhere. We look at the darkest aspects of every single culture from our own perspective and try and find the darkness in there. Something that I think we have a lot to learn about is alibi, safety, and playing with the darkness. Because the world of darkness is not a safe place, not by any stretch of the imagination, not thematically, not the actions that are performed within the games. But in order to address these, we need to have a safe framework where we feel that we can express this difficult subject and perform these difficult actions. And that's what Nordic Larp can give us, because we're experts in making ourselves feel so safe that we can do games about euthanasia, about crisis, about political crises, and so on. And World of Darkness needs this desperately to be relevant and feel alive in our hands. So that is something that I'm looking forward to using as well. Bespoke systems. We are really, really good at creating specific systems for specific situations and games. This is something that the World of Darkness can benefit from greatly. In the end of the line, we only had, I think, 3 clans, so there was no use in including all of the discipline lists for all of the others. It's also in very specific settings, so you can target down and see exactly what do you need here. Without compromising the vast, complex mythology, we say, we focus here and give you the tools to play exactly this story about predator and prey in a social setting. Something that we have learned through our games is that it's not so important maybe what you say in a talking heads fashion in LARP, but it's what you do physically. Black book games are all about this. There's systems to use body rather than verbal communication. So trying to use that method of defining an interaction box to unleashing the players into them and defining very clearly what do these creatures do, and inspiring players to perform those actions. When you're designing for fearlessness, clarity is very important, and this is something that I think we can learn to push people even further into the darkness. The sense of actually being there, whether this is in a computer game or physically in a LARP, is also tremendously important. If you can't live it, or if you can't do it through a black box scenario or or find the correct staging, then maybe you should leave it out for that specific thing. We can do massive TV series or movies about the Ascension wars in different dimensions, but perhaps it is better to play a simple scenario of loss in a kitchen, in a changeling story. So, and believability and being grounded in reality is something that is super important for horror and personal horror to work. We must believe in where we are in order to feel appalled and scared by the transgressive temptations that monstrosity lures us into. It needs to feel real. And that, I think, will be the strongest surface influence from the Nordic LARP scene. A feeling of verisimilitude and believability. Just like Bram Stoker's Dracula is very, very believable, or a Carmilla is also written as if it was real, I think it's time to bring back a sense of gritty realism into the game. So, in the end of the line, which is the first game that we commissioned from Odyssey, we tried out a bunch of these things through a design process where we actually focused on exactly what we wanted to tell, what aspects of Empire do we want to focus on. And from reactions, it seems that this weird approaching and courting of Nordic LARP and the World of Darkness might actually work. Yeah. So having a couple of players coming up and saying it's one of the best experiences in their life is nothing short of mind-blowing and sets a really nice tone for the future. This is serious fun. World of Darkness was one of the first game lines that made us feel deeply. It made us want more. Maybe even made us want to change the world. So I think now it's sort of we owe it to White Wolf to give all that back. It's been 25 years this year, since 1991, and the release of Vampire the Masquerade. We have grown. The world has grown. We have become mature storytellers, ready to take the helm of the generation ship of World of Darkness. Quite simply, this is where we began. This is where we return. This night is ours. Thank you.
I consider my question answered. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you so much for coming here tonight. Thank you for being so focused, even though I know it's a long evening without a break. I think, we're ending here, so thanks everyone on the internet. I hope you've had sound at least. The videos, of course, will be taken out separately and put up online. We're going to go on a cruise now, so I'm not going to promise. I wonder, is there anybody here who would like to tell everybody in the room where we should go next?
There's more wine in the lobby.
Okay, first let's drink some wine in the lobby, and then we'll spread some rumors about where the after party is. Thank you so much, and good night. Please give a big hand to all of our speakers.
All of you here. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the Olympic Terminal, the ship will not wait if you're late. Thank you.